Justin here with Between the Studs, and I have the original studs. Once again, we have Chris here and the Admiral. Or do you prefer Fashion Pirate?
Fashion Pirate's good, yeah. So either of those two terms are starting to come out now, so it's great.
You gotta change your whole online presence now.
Exactly, changing my URL and my handles everywhere
To me, Fashion Pirate is someone who takes fashion from other people.
You can read into
you're
it.
right. I didn't even think about that. How about, what's another word for a buccaneer?
Yeah, there you go.
Fashion buccaneer?
Well, they said
Yeah.
your brother did describe you as Buccaneer.
Yeah, well, he was trying to make fun of my beard.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Now, can you give us, is it possible, can this camera contain it? Can you give us the smolder? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, brown steel. You know that?
Yep, that's what we called it, because I was wearing brown and I was doing the Zoolander vibe of a face. It was so funny.
So you just saw Zoolander.
Yeah, not too long ago, actually, a few days ago. And
days ago.
I was like, I nailed it.
Can you turn left?
Oh, yeah, I had no problem turning either side. So.
I'm a massive Zoolander fan, so as soon as Mark said brown steel, I knew exactly what he was talking about.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's great. And I can't believe you said it without even having watched Zoolander.
I know what blue steel is. There's some cultural
Yeah.
things that flow out. Even if you haven't seen the movie, you know what that is.
El
So,
Nino.
yeah.
But
Magnum.
What's funny is when Mark does that look, it reminds me of the look that Justin Bieber does in Zoolander 2.
I never saw Zoolander 2.
And
Little duck face. So.
I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but yeah, he does very similar to what brown steel looks like. Another thing about Zoolander, though, is that all his looks actually look the same.
Yeah, they're all yeah. Well, Will Ferrell said that. Blue, steel, Magnum, they're all the same. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. I've seen that movie once or twice, too. We are talking about Lego Masters Episode 4, Season 2, with the man himself, one half of the awesome duo, the Erickson brothers. And we got to get your brother actually here
he
one
works
time.
hard during the week. I'm just always
right.
hanging around here in the studio, so it's
We had to wake him up.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Mark, it's time to film.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm ready.
Is it lunchtime? Right.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So I want to know, before we get into the structure and hows and the whys and all that, when you first heard that challenge and you saw Jamie and Amy and Will doing his silliness, what was going through your head?
I knew it had to be something that we would be wearing, because they wouldn't get it. They dress up very fashionably normally, but this was like really crazy fashion even for them. And so it was like, okay, it's we're wearing something. What's the challenge? With the sign, that's incredible. It was like, it could have been anything. And then they started talking about hats. And we're like, okay, we got to make hats, which is actually perfect, because if you put it on your body, it's going to break. The mixed joints and ball joints would have been gone instantly. Everyone would have, like, half the teams would have failed because they just didn't have the right parts to make moving, Lego is not fabric. And so hats is a lot more doable as far as actually physically possible. So yeah, that's what was kind of going through my mind as they were announcing what was going on. So.
They had that quote of your brother saying, Lego's heavy, and his voice got really high. He was very concerned about that. I guess that was a concern going through your head as well.
There was a little bit of like literally safety hazard of putting like a lot of Lego on your head, and the dimensions, they didn't really touch on the fact that they wanted it to be 120 studs wide at some point.
Okay.
And it had to be 2 feet tall at some point.
Really?
So-
Okay, that
Wow.
explains why some of them did such strange dimensions. Okay,
Yeah.
I wish they would have shown
Everyone was adapting to those very, very tough size requirements. Basically, like the had to be 4 foot tall tower in the episode 3. They had to be a really big size, and you could just do a pole, but it wouldn't look good.
Yeah.
So you had to really dress it up, and so that's one of the reasons we went for the hat that we did, is because it actually fits within the guidelines fairly efficiently.
that. 2 feet tall from the...
Top of your head.
Oh, from the top of your...
Yeah.
That's why those things were on top of
They were just guides.
They never
Okay.
explained that, and
yeah,
I remember.
was wondering because some people didn't have it on theirs. Maybe they took it off.
Because we would have made like a little bowler hat if
Yeah.
we could have, but it's like they wanted it big. And
So those poles that were on top of the mannequins, the Lego mannequins, Did they make those ahead of time and give those to you guys to use as guides?
We just built those as a kind of visual aid to see how big we were going to have to make these hats.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember.
Several teams did. Pretty much every team did it, but they only showed up some footage of a couple teams of it.
Did one team do it and then everybody else copied?
I think so. It was like somebody built it. It might have been Moto and Parse, but it was somebody. And then everyone's just like, oh, yeah, duh. It needs to be. And it was actually, you can measure how high 2 feet is in bricks. I think it's like 60 or so. You stack it all up. You have a tape measure. That's the right height. We have to build. Oh, wow.
Well, I wonder why they cut that out, because I guess it's not important.
They cut out a lot of rules.
Yeah.
And I think it's so that they can make it look more competitive throughout the show. They just use the rules that work for the competition.
Yeah, the absolute minimum amount of knowledge for the audience.
So, like, you had to have 2 accessories, whereas...
It was actually just one as far
just
as I know.
one?
Like one major accessory.
Because most teams did have 2.
Yeah.
But there was one team that only had 1. The Phoenix team, I think, only had an amulet. The Eye of Sauron around their neck, which was awesome. Speaking of which, that would be good to wear around our store. These big amulets,
necklaces made of Lego. Yeah, they're easy to make.
It's interesting because I did notice that, and then I guess I kind of forgot about it. It's like, oh, they added a little accessory, and then they did it too. Oh no, wait, everyone's doing it. But again, they never mentioned that as part of the rules. But you're saying that was part of the rules. They had to have at least one accessory, and how restrictive was that?
So 3 hours before the episode was done, and I forget how many hours we had, 12, however it was. I think so. And so 3 hours before it's done, they're like, oh, there's a twist, you have to do accessories. Now, teams had been asking, can we make accessories to go with it? In the questions before the challenge started, and they said, don't worry about it for now, just do the hat. We're like, okay. And so that seemed just a little suspect. So as soon as they said, you have to make accessory, I'm like, okay, that's not too bad. Most people went for the necklace, which is pretty much the easiest thing to do. Steve and I made a necklace, but a couple teams went for like wrist guards. I think it had to be a necklace, eyewear, or a bracelet.
So they did restrict
or even like a body wearable, like a sash or something.
Okay.
So but it couldn't just be like a ring or something really small. It had to be somewhat substantial.
Okay.
There was a couple things it had to be, and you could do more than that. So we did a ring just because we thought that'd be interesting. It's easy to make, and that's where we got these guys from to talk about later. We just kind of went a little extra with the ring. We made a really big necklace, and so a couple of teams did eyeglasses. I'm like, I don't want to impede my vision on where I'm going to be walking. And most people had no problem with that twist. And maybe it's because no one had trouble with the twist. They didn't really talk about it, but I thought it would have been really neat to include.
Just like you said, they only had to give the rules that we need to know.
Which is a really good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, because if a rule doesn't really work out when they're editing it, then it's just like, all right, well, we just don't mention it.
Yeah.
Forget about it. So whatever works for TV, it's really a good idea.
So for you guys, 3 hours left. Was that a freak out for anyone when they had now you have to stop what you're doing and build something else?
Yeah, a couple teams it was a real curveball. I know Jen and Susan, as per usual, were having trouble with the planning and getting it going. I think they restarted partway through, and they were just having difficulty. And so for them, it was kind of like another thing to do. For us, it was kind of like, okay, we were working on some essential details like the flags, the animals on the sides, and so I'm like, Steven, keep working on stuff like that. I'm going to get to... I did all the accessories, which is unusual. Steven is much more into his watches and things than I am, but it just worked out that I was doing them. And so for some teams it was hard. Some teams like us, it was just kind of like, okay, cool. Another thing on the list, it was like not necessarily welcome. We're like, okay, it's more work to do, but we weren't like struggling. Our plan worked pretty much straightforwardly.
You just gave me an idea. I want to make a Lego watch now.
Exactly.
That's what I'm going to do. A non-functioning Lego watch.
Totally doable.
Tell me, so you're sitting there, you heard the thing about hats, you're thinking, okay, a hat is doable, we can do this. They take you back and they're telling you it has to be really big.
Yeah.
Were you thinking still, oh, this is very doable? Did you have ideas ruminating at that point?
Yeah,
what were you doing?
This was actually one of the most organic idea generation process of any of the episodes we've been in, because we didn't really have a set like, oh, we're definitely going to do this. It was kind of like, we have brown, we have to make a big hat. What are we going to do? And so one of the first ideas that came into our minds was antlers. And we would just kind of have like some sort of like wood forest deer, elk thing. But then we actually immediately realized the connection point on the head to the antlers would be too weak. It's like we could build it as strong as we possibly could. We wouldn't be able to walk down the aisle with something that's 60 bricks high and 120 studs wide and still hold it together. We're like, that's just not feasible. Apparently, the table right next to us, Dave and Richard, didn't really realize that, and they ended up paying for it later. That was the first thing, and we immediately, after about 2 minutes talking, we're like, as cool as that would be, it's just too challenging. We need to do something that's a little bit more fits within the guidelines and is still going to be like a solid piece versus like big arms sticking out.
Yours was, I think, the most solid.
Yeah.
It didn't have any moving parts. I mean, except for the flag, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the most sculpted, I would say. Everyone else had a lot of dangly bits, and it really stretched out far. But yours, looked really, really finished and polished and shaped. Yeah. Did you guys finish early?
We weren't finished early, but we got the core structure done pretty well on time. We had the essentials of the hat done when they announced that twist in 3 hours.
Okay.
So we were just doing stuff like the flags, some of the animals, and the accessories in the last 3 hours of the building. So it's like we were on time with our plan, which is great.
I'm sorry, I'm doing all the talking. I was so quiet in the last podcast. I feel like I need to make up for it.
Speaking of the last podcast, did you shave your vacation beard already?
I sneezed and
you
it came
lost
off.
your tan.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm not as buff.
Yeah.
My hair doesn't look as good.
Did you stop eating?
Yes.
It's been a week since you
I think he's just living just on coffee the whole time.
That's right.
Speaking of time, though.
Oh, yes.
Speaking of time, had you had any more time, would you have added anything to the hat or accessories?
Not really. Possibly just something like earrings or other pirate-related gold accessories. There's more you could have done on the body, but I think we were pretty maxed out on the head, especially when it comes to weight.
What are the pirate little pauldrons?
Yeah, we had actually considered doing that.
Epaulets. Yeah. You could do an epaulette with a parrot?
Mm-hmm. We had considered doing shoulder stuff at some point, but it would have restricted the movement so much, we just keep it simple. We wanted to make sure that we actually got through without breaking.
So I want to back up. You know it's a hat, and then they have this extra twist. Okay, to inspire what your hat's going to be, you're going to have these colors. And you open yours. Yep. Moto and Paris got tan, which is probably the most bland, but then you guys open it up and it's brown.
Brown is pretty rough color for fashion, yeah.
And I'm thinking, like what in the world is brown? I'm thinking like tree bark or...
My mind went to UPS.
Yeah.
There you go.
And I thought maybe they could make a UPS hat.
Okay. Their delivery.
A big box.
A big
square
box. Just put my head in a box over my head. Just like a huge box.
It would have to open up this way so you could still do brown steel.
That would have been hilarious. Opening doors in the front.
When you guys first got brown, was this like, oh no? Or was this like, no, we can do this?
Hilariously, every person's color was assigned weeks before. Not assigned. They got a random draw of what color they got. We went last and we got brown. That's kind of a difficult color to deal with as far as fashion, but we like working with brown and earth tone stuff normally, so it wasn't too challenging for us, but it wasn't like the best for this challenge necessarily. I would say it's one of the harder colors as well as tan. And you know how Amy just hates tan. So they were at a natural disadvantage from the start. It was a difficult color, but we actually, we knew what was coming out. We staged the part where we grab it off the rack.
Oh, really?
And we brought it over and we're like, oh, it's brown.
Oh, so
so it was all acted. Every single person, every table was acting like they just discovered what their color was.
Okay, and you guys know
it's that way for fairness, because they're actually wanting to make sure that everyone just gets a random draw. That was your color, and it's going to appear later in a few episodes. So,
but you had no idea what the color meant or how.
Yeah, we're going to have some sort of challenge that relates to brown at some point.
Got it. So when you saw the things on the racks, it was like, okay, this is where we get brown.
They handed us the thing and says, "This is yours. Remember which number it is when you grab it." And we're going to act like we've discovered our colors.
Okay.
So it was
the only staged part of this episode.
It was a brown outfit, but you didn't wear the brown outfit.
Not while building. It was just for the runway.
You did wear it on the runway?
Yeah, they did wear it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Both partners.
That tells you how distracting the hat and and the necklace and the ring were. I mean, that was... I didn't even notice. I was like, I thought they were supposed to wear brown.
I want to know, how did you get it onto the head?
Yes, so...
What was underneath?
Most teams, with a notable exception of Moto and Paris, started with building sort of a skull cap of Lego and making sure that at least there was a frame that fit on your head. Because if you don't have that, why are you here? Steve and I did that first. It looked like it was a ring around the outside and a cross across the top. And we made that as strong as possible. There was I think it was 10 plates thick as
It was all plates.
Yeah, we just used plates. No technique, no nothing. And then from there, we built out to the right length, which was the 2 points that you saw. And then we just built these huge panels on the sides going up to a very strong pole that Steven made. and that's how the whole hat was assembled.
So there was a pole in the middle.
Yep, and that was the flag pole at the top.
Oh, so it was attached all the way to the base.
Yeah, so it was kind of like mounted into the plates using Technic plates, which have those holes in them. It had axles going through most of the way, and it was snot going up on that pillar, so that when those plates, they snapped right to that pole. It was pretty secure.
How did you guys make sure it was balanced? Did you guys constantly put it on? Did the mannequin dummy actually help?
Interestingly, the mannequin was sized at like an average head size. Steven and I are not small people, so it was about 2 inches around the entire circumference, too small for my head. And that my head is smaller than Steven's head. So I was picked as the person going to be doing the walk just because I have a smaller head. And because I have a little bit more sass and attitude than Steven. And so that mannequin was absolutely no help to us because it didn't even fit except for the very top portion. And it was very difficult to get on and off the mannequin. And at the end of the challenge, they said, all the hats need to be on the mannequin. We're like, dude, we didn't even plan on putting that back on. So you could see shots of us carefully getting it back on, looking underneath so we can see where it's landing. Because it was very rounded on the inside and the mannequin's head was not matching up. So it was very tricky. We got literally last second, we got it on there securely and we were able to move it over. So
my wife's head, her whole proportion is child-sized.
Wow.
So she actually has to buy glasses in child size and sunglasses and stuff, and she cannot wear even women's hats. Her head is child size.
That's nice because they're more affordable.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
She can share with her kids.
So she would we couldn't even do that, I guess.
Yeah, it would be too small. Your head would be too small versus the mannequin. Ours is much bigger than the mannequin. And a few teams, most teams were okay. I think Dave and Richard, theirs wasn't exactly matching either, but they got it to sit on the top at the very end.
Could you add bricks to the mannequin to help?
We did a little bit, but it was just so big a difference. You're talking 3 or 4 bricks difference.
Oh, wow.
And it's just like, you'd have to build a whole sculpture on top of the head to even make it fit to the exact dimensions we were building on. So it was just have that. It was about a 6x6 area where it just sat on top, and it was like a hollow space around the head. Yeah.
So you mentioned this, or you hinted at it, how Moto and Paras did not start with an internal structure like everyone else. Pretty much everyone else did. Yeah. What did they start with?
Now they were on literally the opposite side of the room, so I didn't necessarily get a bird's eye view of what they were doing, but from what the show was showing and what I had kind of perceived just looking around the room, which we didn't do that often this episode, they pretty much split it into 2 projects. Moto seemed to be building the snake with the tree on top to get the height requirement, and Paras is doing the rim of the hat that looked like a sombrero style hat, going the front and back, the length requirement. And so they kind of had to meet in the middle, and I think I would have prioritized that a little bit more than some of the details that they ended up working on. It was tough, not a lot of time to build a very big, elaborate thing that had to be super strong. Their hat was pretty strong, but it just managed to break right at the worst moment when they started to go on the stage.
That was the other thing. It had to be a hat. It couldn't be a Lego model on your head. They said that. So you guys couldn't build a Forester castle that just sat on your head. It had to look like a hat.
You know what, though, is, in my opinion, Mark and I like their hat the best, Mark and Stevens, because if you take their hat and you put it on the table, it looks like a really cool hat. You know, with a very artistic feel. You know, it's got almost like a picture, right? Whereas if you take the top 2 who got in, Zach and Wayne's, and then the artsy ladies, their hats were great. Don't get me wrong, but if you took those hats and put them on the table, you'd probably look at them and be like, what is that? Yeah. Unless it's on a head or on a mannequin.
Interestingly, you couldn't actually put their hats on the table because they weren't built that way. They could only be on a mannequin or head. Ours was, it was designed for the table, but you could put it on a mannequin or head. So.
That was so cool looking, your hat, that I was like, oh man, we got to recreate that. But it was huge. I was looking at it, I was like, man, there's no way we have the bricks for that.
Yeah, I'll send you a picture. It's just like, it's like me, and then there's a hat that's almost as tall as me on top of my head. It's crazy.
Jesus.
You guys were the only ones that did any kind of mosaic or picture or anything like that.
Yeah.
So to me, you guys really stood out in that sense. And yours just looked solid. Was it hollow on the inside?
It was relatively hollow, but it had structural supports on the inside.
Okay.
So, but those big plate panels were pretty much just a huge interwoven panel of plates. It was just stuck to the side, carefully measured.
How did you balance it? How did you make sure it wasn't going to fall?
We talked about that earlier. Yeah. It basically the hat itself was fairly balanced, and because it's long area on the bottom, and it just kind of has this rounded area on the top. Most of the weight rested nicely on my head.
Okay.
However, towards the end of the episode, we had some criticism from the judges. You need something to be standing out from the hat. You have a lot of plumes. You have a lot of stuff going on in other hats. We don't want this to be a solid blob. They thought it looked a little pixelated, a little bit condensed. And so we decided to add flags because everyone else was doing feathers. So put those flags in the bag. But we had been testing the balance the whole time, but we just didn't once we put the flags on. So when I'm on the runway and I go to let go, the flags really messed with the balance, and that's why it seemed very wobbly because I would not anticipated that at all. And I was trying to flex my scalp to try and keep it from falling over. So that's why you see it wobble back and forth because I'm like flexing one side of my head and the other as I'm trying not to freak out in front of all the cameras and stuff. So, but thankfully, just had enough time to grab back on once the 5 seconds was over.
It was about to fall.
It was, really, I felt about to fall, but it didn't look too bad on the cut. So it's like the micro movements was making more sensory information in my brain than maybe was actually happening.
It's good luck you have such a strong scalp.
Yeah, I was like, it was a major freak out moment, but I tried not. I think you could see my face, my look disappeared for a minute. That's why I wasn't going like. I was like, I was freaking out. Like you could see my face was just blank for a second. Yeah.
That is crazy because you're right. Everyone else did have these wild things just sticking out everywhere, and you guys did have a Hershey Kiss. It was very condensed.
It was solid. Yeah, and I like that about our build, but they actually got on us, and they actually, for some reason, as we love the mosaic, Steven did a terrific job doing both of those, but they actually said, "Oh, they look kind of pixelated." I'm like.
It's Lego.
Yeah, it kind of that was one of the moments where we're like, really.
Lego mosaic.
And so they wanted a little bit more texture, a little bit more flamboyance, apparently. So
okay.
At least that's the prompts they were getting in their e-pieces. So
okay.
I don't know. So.
That's why you didn't get in the top.
Yeah.
But that's fine. You won in our book.
Yeah.
Yes.
We felt like winners.
Yeah.
Was it just me, or did Jamie seem way more uncomfortable in the outfit they gave him with the glasses and the biker gloves, and he looked so awkward.
He actually really enjoyed.
Oh, did he?
So
okay.
if the cut makes him look uncomfortable, that's unfortunately not exactly how.
Okay.
Being there, he seemed to just think he was hilarious. He was just having a great time. So Amy seemed just like a little bit like, yeah, I'm here. It was interesting. I would say it was slightly the opposite.
So you see people drawing out their ideas on a tablet. All right, with a stylus. The top two, it showed them at the beginning drawing out theirs on the stylus. I think they might have done that on purpose when they went back. They drew that out, Wayne and Zach. I was like, there's no way they're gonna make that into Lego. It's not possible. It's just too much. And they did, and it looked great.
Yeah,
and it stayed on their head. They didn't show anyone else drawing on the tablet. Do you guys plan that out?
Everyone was instructed, please draw a little something on the tablet. We did. We just did the profile, basically, of it. I think we even did a little sketch of the antlers, and we're like, nah, X. And then we kept on going. So everyone did some drawing. Steven and I did not plan too long. We planned for probably about 10, 15 minutes. Then we started going for brown. Everyone drew to some extent. Some teams less than others.
Michelle and Natalie, who got in the top two.
Yeah. Who won, actually.
Theirs was like crazy looking on the tablet too, and it was like, how could they possibly do that? And they did.
Totally did.
So, Chris, what would you make?
Depends on the color.
Yeah.
All right.
What color would you want, and what would you do with that
color?
color?
Have to. Well, my favorite color is blue, but I don't know. I haven't thought about it. I'd have to. I mean, how long did it take you, Mark, to come up with the hat idea?
About, as I said, about 15 minutes talking with Steven.
15 minutes?
Yeah.
You don't want to wait 15 minutes.
We don't wait that long.
For me to come up with my idea. Transformers would be cool, though.
Yeah. If it had to be a hat, though.
Yeah.
It had to be a hat.
Transformer hat.
Could you do a night helmet?
Yeah, you probably could have. It's headgear.
And that would be more stable if it went completely over your head.
You just had like little lines, visors. Yeah.
Knowing that Steven and Mark are big castle fans,
we wanted gray.
I've got to think that they're banking away the castle themes and the medieval themes for later on. Because they can't just do castle.
For everything. It's like, the castle guys
The temptation was strong to do castle every single time. But we decided to kind of shake it up and include other themes that would like, hence pirates. And ancient stuff for the tower. Watermelons. I don't know why Steven chose watermelons.
The watermelon was great.
It was good. And then the sea serpent was like a little different take on castle.
Yeah. Viking. It's a
Hopefully we'll see some castle later on. We'll see.
The next challenge is that hanging thing. Are we ready to talk about that first, or should we Is there
Anything
anything
else
we
you wanna
want to
cover?
finish up on?
I know what you guys are doing because I've seen you do it before. It's got to be a floating castle. The example they showed of yours was more, you hadn't decorated as much, but then the
twins.
brothers, are they twins?
Yeah, they're twins.
They're
I didn't
fraternal
realize
twins,
that.
yeah.
The brothers were building the same thing. Theirs was a little more developed. You could tell what it was, and it's definitely the rock base of a floating castle that's out there. Yeah.
So you think it's going to be a castle? You're pretty sure?
Okay. It has to be.
Okay. He can't give it away.
You can see bits and pieces in the end of that episode. And there's also, I think earlier in episode 1, they actually showed a clip from that.
Now, I will say, this is the last build I specifically remember. I've not gone back to other clips of the promos to count the builds, because that's one way you can find out how long he actually lasts, is just count the builds. But this is the last one I remember seeing, so I don't know. I don't want to look at him. I don't know if he lasts past this. I guess I could go back and watch those first promos.
Maybe they made it too heavy. Their castle's too heavy and it just falls and crashes everywhere.
You think so?
Yeah.
You think structure? It seems like they're the structure kings right now. I mean, they've learned from the shaking
but they
tower.
might make it too heavy in the fishing string.
It just brings the
Brings.
steel girder down. It's connected to. I do like, because I asked you about it before. You guys didn't really get in competition. No one was building, but they do have that one clip of you guys. Oh, I thought you were copying me. But then they showed a longer clip of Will Arnett saying, prompting you to like, hey, talk trash to them. Say something. He's an instigator. That Will.
They were trying to make some sort of drama for sure. So that you could see that in that clip.
Oh. Going back to the hat, that reminded me. So this seemed pretty challenging, not as frustrating as the tower seemed. And you were telling me one thing that you do not see on Lego Masters or any of these reality TV shows is how much stamina is part of the competition. You guys are tired.
Yes.
You guys are creatively burnt out, but you don't get a ton to sleep. You're stressed out about staying on the show. Was this challenge when it started to wear on people, or was it really the last one?
I think when you saw the first signs of being really tired was episode 2. Steven and I and several other teams were actually, as I said, we were like getting stressed with each other. And then episode 3, it's just kind of continued. I think more teams were getting into the swing of things a little bit at that point. Steven and I were still doing pretty poor as far as physical stamina, strength. And then at this point, episode 4, we started doing just slightly better despite being absolutely dead tired, because I started chugging Coca-Cola. Literally, that's all I was drinking. And it was just like caffeine, because I don't drink coffee, and most of the other contestants do, and they were throughout the whole show, as long as they were there. I was just started chugging Coca-Cola's episode off camera. Obviously, you don't see it. And so that caffeine boost really helped me get those plate shapes just right and really get through our idea the way we wanted to. And Steven and I started to do a little bit better. We started getting our bearings physically. That being said, every single filming...
Do you want to, while you're sponsoring Coca-Cola,
exactly.
do you want to sit
that's
it on
exactly
the table?
what it was. I got to give props. Anyway.
Coke, it works.
Coca-Cola, it's got caffeine. Anyway, and sugar.
Mark's already getting sponsorships. Obviously, Coca-Cola is paying him something here. Beyond the
bridge.
Yeah, well, that was, Anyway, Steve and I were starting to get our bearings as far as physically where we were. We were starting to feel better. We're both used to working hard. Every day that for filming that episode was a 5:15 call time, and we were getting off at 10:30 or later.
5:15.
Yeah.
Get home. Get back to the hotel at.
So we had like about 4 hours max at home at the hotel to take a shower, lay in bed for a few hours, get up, go out, and start filming again.
So you guys were running on 4 hours of sleep?
Yeah.
Wow.
Every single team.
What?
Yeah.
The second day, I would have murdered someone.
Yeah.
I would have
I know.
the first person I saw
And
murdered.
if you look at the episode, you can see some pretty red eyes, despite the excellent job by the makeup crew. Me and Brian in particular look a little bit red around the eyes, just like tired, really just raw, So it was intense. So at that point, people are feeling it. It's rough.
And that was consistent? Were there some nights where you had a little more?
That was one of the toughest time-wise filming schedules, that episode. But it wasn't super... The second episode and fourth episode were the worst, in my opinion, so far. It kind of continues throughout. It's just a very intense filming schedule.
I assume that as more people get eliminated, that filming takes less time.
Yeah.
So you guys might have gotten more sleep. We don't know how much longer it lasts. At least it's...
Theoretically, that's the case.
Okay. What did you guys do with the extra space when there were 2-3 teams less now on the floor? Did you guys spread out more?
As far as I know, like how many people were eliminated at this point, it would be 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so they would have taken the 2 tables off the end and just moved the tables up a little bit. So it was just like another foot or 2 of space between each table now. I think that trend will continue as people get eliminated.
I know showing you guys in the background, you guys are very supportive and cheering a lot. And you said they actually cut. You guys are more supportive in real life.
Yeah.
With everyone. Everyone was very positive.
Yeah.
All the teams were. When Moto and when they lost or they got in the bottom 2, how was that?
Yeah, so you barely see it because there's not a lot of time left in the episode. But they were sad, they were torn up. I think they were more sad immediately getting off the runway. That's when they were like just you could see it on their faces. Everyone was just like really sad for them.
Yeah.
And they cut out most of that, I think, just to kind of keep it competitive, and so that we don't look like we're really sympathizing or empathizing with them. There was a lot of emotion going on behind the scenes and what they're not, showing in the final cut, because it is a short episode and there's a lot to cover, a lot of runway antics to cover. So, but yeah, everyone was super supportive. Everyone was really kind. Even if you're walking by someone's build, they'd say, "That looks awesome," or "Great job." Everyone, including me, we were all trying to be very complimentary to each other. So unfortunately, that doesn't really fit their narrative of like it's like cutthroat. They're even though all these people are like absolute saints, they're really nice people. So
I did like Moto and Paris's bendable fabric made out of Lego. Moto was saying that they invented a bendable fabric right there on the spot, and it showed them bending it.
Yeah.
And it looked pretty cool. It stayed in place.
It's pretty cool.
Was it mixel joints? Is that what they did?
I would have to watch it again now, but all I know is they were using a lot of Technic or mixel joints to make sure it was strong yet pretty pliable, at least in that one direction.
Were they going for like a straw hat, like a Mexican straw hat?
Yeah, kind of a not necessarily a sombrero, but kind of Central American vibes.
I think he said safari.
Okay.
So they could bend it up like a safari hat.
I felt like I didn't get that. Did they have a lot of stutter starts? Because their build, except for the snake, seemed really unfinished.
Yeah.
Did they stutter a lot?
Well, it's just what they were doing was very Technic-based and very technical. So you're going to see it works great as far as strength in certain areas, but because they really poured a lot of energy and time into those specific things, the pole and the snake and the hat brim, the area around there, that they kind of lost track of where they met. Yeah, that ended up being their downfall. That's exactly where it broke once Moto went to pick it up. It just snapped, and then they tried to set it on Pars's head really quickly because they had to go out, and you had 90 seconds to pick up your hat, put it on there, get ready to walk out. Everyone was timed because it was like a runway. It was like ready to go, and so they couldn't stop and fix their hat. They had to just go. And that's what got him.
For the people that have specific lines like Will Arnett and some of the judges, did they have their lines down most of the time, or did they ever mess up? It's like, okay, take 2, and then you guys had to reset and pretend to be surprised again. Did that happen a lot?
During the runway, it was all like just straight live. There was no cutting, redoing anything. That was like one big take of everyone taking their turn to go out. When they were talking or judging or whatever, they would have a screen prompter behind us to read their lines. And if they didn't read it right or for some reason it just didn't work out, Amy messed up her lines a few times. Will did a little bit. Jamie was pretty solid. He had to redo it every now and then. And so they would just say it over again. And in fact, most of the time, even contestants would be able to, if they just stumbled with their words or something, they would be able to say, start over again, and they would just use that cut. Yeah, so they would really like wait a second and then start talking again. So,
but you guys didn't have to go cut
again.
No. Okay,
no, it wasn't that bad. They are cutting pieces of our dialogue to fit what they were trying to describe.
Got it. What was your opinion on how it was cut together?
I was pretty happy with it. Steven and I got plenty of time. Steven got a lot more time, especially in the early part of that episode. So I was really happy to see that because they've been covering a lot of me being grouchy and competitive. And
a Viking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so we seem a lot less psychopathic, which I'm happy about. And I'm happy with how much screen time we got. I would have liked to see more of me making goofy face in the runway, but I actually think that
we all saw more than once, which was nice.
Yeah,
you know,
and I think we got a good chunk of time on the runway, even compared to the other people. So I'm like, I really can't complain, even though I would love to see more of that. So I was pretty happy with it overall.
Yeah, and you guys had a longer conversation with Will on that episode.
Yeah, we got some time with Will. He talked with everyone pretty much at least once every episode. So I'm just glad that ours actually made the cut this time, because most of the time our interactions with Will were fine, but not really like super interesting. One thing I would say that we missed out on, or just, there's not time, is the judging phase was a lot longer for each contestant. They didn't just say 1 or 2 lines. It was like they would talk for a couple minutes with each person about their hat. Amy, in particular, was like, Mark, really love the faces. Like, if this is America's Next Top Model, you would have won. And I'm like, yes. And then she's like, but it's not. I'm like, oh.
I felt a connection between you two.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Did you get her digits?
Nope. No, but okay. We weren't even allowed to talk to them, so it wasn't meant to be. But
Mark's not tall enough.
Yeah, actually, we're the same height, so whatever. But
is she really that tall?
Yeah, she's absolutely our height, for sure. She's like at least 6'2".
Really?
There's
even with heels, maybe 6'1" with the heels. But yeah,
there's a reason that Will Arnett puts Jamie in between her.
Yeah, he doesn't want to seem shorter. Yeah, for real. That was really funny. And then they actually were pretty critical. Like they said, the mosaics look pixelated. We had blue plates underneath supporting. We didn't get to cover in time because that was the last thing we wanted to work on was the bottom. They got us on that because they could see a little bit down on the chairs. And so a few of the judging things they didn't cover, but the only things that they did show were of just praise. So I'm like, I can't really complain that much because it made us look like our hat was great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they didn't cover the interesting parts, but those are also the critical parts.
How did the editing go when you guys went, and then before the judging, then they edited you guys, I think, talking about the hats? Moto's and Pars's hat was back together when they were talking about it. Did they have to rebuild it, or was that edited in the reverse order?
The judging occurred after the runway scene,
okay.
But they're showing footage from when the beauty shots were taken. Hats are all done. They're on a mannequin.
Oh.
And so you'll see most of the footage of Moto and Pars's hat is together, but then when you cut back to them, it's basically a pile of pieces in front of them. Obviously, they know what happened, how it turned out, and that's why they ended up in the bottom 2 is because their hat broke.
So you said you liked their hat the best. Who would you put in the top 2 or 3?
Actually, I liked the Phoenix a lot, but again, that's probably it's just me. I'm biased. I like the similar genres that Mark and Steven like. I like Phoenix's a lot, of course.
It's a cool theme.
It's cool. The couture hat and the arrow hat were awesome, but it's just not my style.
The couture hat and the Phoenix, they actually use Lego to make it look like fabric.
Mm-hmm.
That's what was interesting to me, and that felt like more in the vein of what the judges wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So the Phoenix one had the flaps, like the sash,
Yeah,
hanging
and then-
off the back,
yes.
and it actually dangled. And I was like, whoa,
Yes.
is that really fabric?
Yeah.
I mean, that was
was excellent,
awesome.
yeah.
I've never heard of couture. I've seen those, like, I think of not 20s, but whatever era that is, those big
retro
elaborate
fashion
habits.
hats. Yeah.
And I guess that's the name, and that's what couture is.
Yeah.
So I could recognize it, but I've never heard that term before, and now I feel even snootier. Now I can use that.
Get fashionable over
Isn't
here.
there a company out there called Juicy Couture?
Probably. So
Yeah,
pretty funny.
I think that's one of the
Chris knows more about fashion than both of us.
fashion.
Yeah.
Well, I am the only one here that has seen both Zoolanders.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
This makes him an automatic expert. Okay, now I think we're ready, unless we have any other discussion points. Okay, let's talk about episode 5. The last episode, at least in my mind, I know for sure he is on.
Okay.
Well, I have to be. I didn't go out this one.
Yeah, it's a hanging brick. It's a Technic brick, and it looks like it has 2 wires on it. Do you feel like there's going to be any other rules besides make something hanging that they're going to add?
Well-
and what would they be?
From other episodes, it sounds like they have size requirements. In the past, they've had fantasy.
Yeah.
Make it a fantasy thing.
Force a theme?
Make it a sci-fi thing.
Yes.
Make it something because they want a story behind it. They've done stuff like that in the past.
And your guess, I described it looking like a gray drill, what Mark and Steven and what the twins were making.
Yeah.
But you're saying that's a floating castle, it can't be anything else.
It's the bottom rock structure. So I can't remember what what I've seen it on, but when you see
Countless
it on
things.
TV shows and cartoons, there's always
It's like a
water.
steampunk almost, right?
Yeah, it's like a steampunk thing. There's always
Chima.
water dropping.
He's
from
doing
it.
a Chima one.
That's right.
That's because their
Yeah,
island
Laval's
it had the
castle.
waterfalls and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
We knew it. We knew you liked Chima. Okay, they just didn't show the lion head or the lion castle.
I am noticing that no one's doing so the couture hat looked like a Star Destroyer, a black Star Destroyer. At one point. At one point.
For sure.
And I was like, man, that would be awesome if they did a black Star Destroyer hat. In fact, you asked me what I would do for a hat. My son and I were talking, and I was like, man, I would totally do a Star Wars hat. Make it a big Star Destroyer sitting on top of your head. That would be awesome. But I'm guessing you're not allowed to do licensed themes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, any end of the challenges, no licensed themes.
Okay.
And not even owned by Disney or Fox. They also were like, kind of just do an original thing. They didn't even want you doing Legos. So it's like you really just had to make something as generic or original as possible. Like not associated with any other media.
So they probably won't do Chima.
Well, he'll sneak it in. I'll always know it's Chima inspired.
No, he's doing a Nexo Knights floating castle.
There you go. That I forgot. That was actually his favorite. It goes Nexo Knights Chima.
Yeah.
I forgot.
Yeah,
Okay.
because in the Nexo Knights universe, it makes sense.
Yeah.
In the real world, the gravity would pull that castle
of
down.
course.
But in
Yeah.
Nexo Knights, they could have
propulsion.
and
Yeah.
stuff. So it only makes sense with Nexo.
In honesty, though, do you think the twins are making a floating castle as well? Is that why they look similar, or do you think they're gonna? What's your guess?
It makes it sound like the way they're talking that they are, but I feel bad for them if they're trying to castle it up.
Outcastle them.
Outcastle
Go
Mark and
castle,
Steven.
outcastle me, son.
So at Brick World Chicago one year, Mark and Steven did a floating castle setup.
Yeah, you mentioned that they've made something like this before.
Yeah.
Okay.
Steven has done many floating island castle things before.
So
Your entire lug group did it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
How did you do it before? What was the internal structure?
So the purpose of that was to be on a table, and that was going to have a black tablecloth for all of Brickworld's display areas. So we had black pillars of bricks, usually 2x4s, sometimes like a 4x4 area stacked. And on that you would build a landscape. So in this case, stuff's hanging, so you can imagine how we translate that to that if we end up doing a floating castle.
But I imagine if that's part of the challenge, you have to start from that Technic brick. Your structure all has to be pinned internally instead of externally down onto something on a table, on a pole or something.
Exactly.
Mark just said if they do a floating
If we
castle,
were to do a
watch
floating
them
castle.
not do a floating castle, and then
It really is a drill.
we're going to be
That's all
so
it is.
disappointed. It's going to be the worst episode ever. They probably win and everything.
Yeah.
They win that episode, they're in the top 2, and then we're just so disappointed because it wasn't a
He
castle.
didn't do a castle. Ah.
One thing to note is it looks like they brought down the red brick that the golden brick is housed in.
Yes, they did
So,
show that. So Golden
yeah.
Brick comes back up.
We were hoping it would come out in episode 4, but it
Yeah.
did not.
I remember they did that last season where it was kind of random. They just
We didn't know when
Okay.
or where it would appear, but it would seem, based on that little clip at the end of this episode, that it's probably going to be in this one.
And because the show's a real competition and it's not set up, they don't know when they're going to get it back. So those decisions by the executives or the writers or whoever's responsible, those decisions have to be made on the fly. They may not know that they were going to turn it back in.
Is there an episode next week?
It's not immediately, as of filming this, it's not the immediately next week. It just skips a week and goes on to.
So there is no episode next week.
So so
So when
next
this airs,
Tuesday,
we have to. It's going to be like basically a week and a half till the next one comes out.
we have off next Tuesday.
Yeah.
We won't be off. We'll give you more content, but we're not doing a review because there's no.
After episode 4, we take a week break, and then
Or
5
4,
will
okay.
return again.
Okay. Any idea why they're doing that?
Well, there's a 2-hour episode of Mental Samurai, so check that out. No,
Another sponsorship.
Yeah, he's making bank. You're paying
We're
him
actually
right now. Beyond Brick is
cast,
paying him
the cast
Coca-Cola.
is messaging each other. We're actually super annoyed that Mental Samurai gets a 2-hour episode and Lego Masters doesn't, because Lego Masters is so much more interesting, especially the longer you make it. So
Every episode could be 2 hours. I mean,
it
they
should have been, but
I feel like they cut so much out that they really could have added in. They should make an extended cut.
at least
A
on
director's cut.
At least on a streaming service, you could totally do that.
The Will Arnett
Yeah.
cut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just him doing dad jokes for 2 hours.
The Arnett cut.
So what is your prediction? You were saying they were going to make a castle, so do you feel like they're pretty safe then this episode?
If they make a castle, they are. Yeah. Unless it falls.
Okay. Or there's some other rule. Like you said, obviously there's going to be some dimensional rule. But there might be some other monkey wrench they throw in.
And maybe that's why the twins are doing a castle as well. Maybe they said that there's a theme.
Everyone has to do medieval?
Fantasy. No, not medieval, but like fantasy, sci-fi.
Okay.
Before you close it out, the only other thing I wanted to talk about is this awesome ring pop that I have on my finger. Mark made this ring and was wearing something like it last night on the show. Mm-hmm. Mark recreated it, and we made some kits out of it. And you can buy these on our website if you go and search for Power Ring. Mark made it, and I was just like, I don't wear rings. I mean, it looks like a ring pop. I wasn't that impressed. And Mark was like, well, just try it on. And I put it on, and I felt the power. I really did. I started pointing at everything.
You did.
It gives
telling
you a
people what
attitude.
to do. It does. Weren't you wearing this when you did Brown Steel?
It's exactly why I had the power to do
Yes.
that amazing runway performance. I was wearing this, an awesome ring, almost exactly like this one, just switched the red color.
So then I was like, well, what are we going to call it? I was like, let's do the ring or the one ring or, something. And Mark was like, no, I think we should call it Power Ring. And I'm like, no, I don't. That just doesn't sound good. But then you put it on.
You feel the power.
And you feel the power.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's really cool about it is Mark has thought of everything here. So this is the large band that's on it. Mm-hmm. And this is the first time I've actually played with one. It's way too big for me. So all I had to do is take a link out here, and then it was too tight for me. So then I took he's got these, what do you call these, boat studs?
Yeah, boat underside
tiles. That go on the inside. You just take those out, and then it makes it bigger, and now it's a perfect fit.
There you go.
So it's almost like a one-size-fits-all thing.
Super customizable.
Very customizable. He's got extra pieces in there to change your gem out. You could take the sides off, change the colors, etc. And that's what it looks like, all packaged up. They're $24.99. And you could also get a free autographed trading card from Mark or Justin or me or one of our other employees.
And Steven's getting his own as well.
Steven's getting his own, hopefully tomorrow.
Those will be hard to get because he's not in the store very often.
Yeah, you're right. If you add one of those trading cards to your cart, you can add one of Mark's autographed cards or Justin's. As long as I think you spend $20, just type in the promo code FREECARD. And it'll add that card to your cart for free.
Type in promo code FREECARD, one word.
Free card, all caps, one word. And you can choose the autograph card.
Okay.
From Mark or me or you or Jacob or Joe or Ed or Angie.
But you only get the one,
John.
right?
And
choose wisely.
Choose wisely, yeah. You could pay for the others, or you could get them all for free if you come to the store. If you add that to your cart, you could get one for free with that ring.
And signed.
And we just added these to our store.
And Chris is not joking, by the way. When he put it on, he did start pointing at everything, and he started commanding people to do trivial things.
If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see that I've played with it this entire time. And what's amazed me is it's not falling apart. The studs have come undone a little bit, but you can actually fix it with your finger at the same time. So it's almost like a fidget toy as well.
So will this start a line? Are you going to do a necklace, the earring that you mentioned?
Yep, there may be more sets kind of loosely inspired by some of our experiences on LEGO Masters. So keep an eye out on videos like this for news about that.
I've got the power.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. Please consider subscribing if you're not subscribed already.
Like all the things.
Like all the things. Do the thumbs upping and the commenting. There's the ring. We'll do close-ups of that. And, of course, a link to our store, as always. Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you so much, Mark. Enjoy your day off next week. And we will be back with more LEGO Master craziness. We'll be back doing our regular podcast next Friday. We're not going to stop. We'll just pause for the LEGO Masters for now.
Can you give anyone a preview of what you're going to put out next week?
One is conventions. We had a discussion about Lego conventions. Yep.
Speaking of conventions, Mark is going to Brick Rodeo in Houston.
End of July.
End of July. Are you doing anything special there, or just displaying your mugs?
There will be several opportunities to get signed stuff from me there. You just need to check out.
Steven.
Yeah, and Steven. All the contestants who are making it there. There's about 6 of them. It'll be pretty exciting. If you're going to that event, make sure you're keeping in touch with the activities because it's going to be somewhere in there. That is last weekend in July.
Last weekend in July, coming up soon.
Yeah.
Right after that, the very next weekend is Brick Fair, Virginia.
Exactly.
In Chantilly, Virginia. That is the August 1st and 2nd, I think.
Yeah.
And you're going to be at that.
Yep.
And Steven's going to be there.
Now that has less interaction, so you'll probably see us, but we'll be behind a table displaying our mock. There's no actual interaction.
But you're going to have your mock there.
Yeah, so you can see my stuff.
They could take a picture of your mock, and if you're sitting there, maybe you could be in it.
Exactly.
And
Go
actually,
like this and show off your ring.
the Atlanta Brick Co. will be at Brick Fair, Virginia.
We will be
well.
at Brick Fair, Virginia with a vendor booth. We're talking about Justin maybe coming too.
Yep. Justin would be great. People would be swarming this guy.
No,
Yeah.
I'll be
His
there.
autograph.
If I'm there, I'll be taking video. I'll be behind the camera the whole time.
doing good content for
a
Tuesday video.
We'll put Beyond the Brick out of business.
We got to get the shirt off of you, man. We put a piece of tape over it or something. No, we love Beyond the Brick. They're good friends
Beyond
of
the
ours.
Brick's great.
Thank you so much. We'll see you guys very soon.